James, you saw this film twice, so why did you want to watch it twice?
For the reasons that we've discussed, right? I mean, there's a quite a lot to unpack within that, not just from a narrative point of view, but also just from a cinematography point of view. I was exactly as you were saying there, Guy, like watching the scenes back on the second time, just trying to figure out how they did them. And to Liam, you've spoken through a couple of camera tricks, etc., that they showed there as well. I also really liked when they brought the camera up close to either to the back of the head or front of the head, and then spin the 180 round to show them what they're looking at, but you get their reaction first, and there's like a really then slow reveal of it, which I don't know, there was just loads of different techniques that they used throughout it, which did give it an extra bit of interest and life to everything they were doing that was worth watching a second time. And I mean,
it's engaging because you're on their expression or their reaction. And then you're for like 5-10 seconds just wondering what it is that they're looking at. So it just seemed to me like a really great camera trick to just hold the audience's attention on whatever mystery that inevitably it was going to show in the next couple of shots.
Yeah, exactly. And they were all very, very well thought out. There was obviously purpose behind them. They're all adding to something in some way. And on the second viewing, the character of, I think, Hubert was probably the most interesting because, as you said, Guy, when you first were introduced to him, you very quickly established that he is the most level-headed of the trio. But knowing where he gets to, like within the film, knowing that context, and then rewatching it again and kind of picking up on the triggers that would get him to where he gets to without trying to completely spoil it is fascinating. That's where the interest for me kind of lay in the second watch. So I would recommend doing it.
Yeah, he's a character with more morals, isn't he? I mean, we say don't want to spoil it, so really, really, really have to talk about the ending.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we can analyse it properly without spoiling it.
The ending, I can't remember the last time I have literally been like, oh my god, like literally shocked, like jaw hit the floor with the ending.
Which bit? Well, when who was shot?
Yeah,
Kassovitz.
When Vince is shot, yeah. I literally still wasn't expecting it, even up to that point. Like, I know Hubert was going back up, but when he's there with the gun, and all that, and then it goes off, I was literally like.
But it's such a pivotal moment.
Oh my god!
All that, just handing over the gun, the fact of him, he's carried this gun with him throughout the whole film, and it's given him this massive sense of entitlement. For him to say, "I don't need this anymore." Yeah, I've moved on. And handing the gun over itself was a huge moment. And you think, what's he going to do with it? Is he going to put it in a bin? You just don't know. And then it completely spirals out of control. And that's when you are sat there in absolute awe because you're not really sure what's just happened.
I think it almost
like you understand exactly why, and you understand all the motives behind why every single character has done what they did.
It almost lights up the forget it. It's just gone from my head what I was about to say, so forget that. But it's yeah, it's that was it. I've just remembered. Sorry, go on, Liam. It just shows how I didn't realize how attached I become to the characters throughout the whole thing anyway, and how much you sort of just grow to like the characters until that happened at the end. Because almost like throughout the entire film, nothing's been taken away from you as a viewer from those characters in a way. It was all sort of just rounding off nicely, and then suddenly one of those characters is taken away, and you're like, oh shit. Like suddenly at that point in the film as well, something like that happens, and then it pieces together, so it brings it all back into the round with Hubert's story originally about man jumping from a building, and whatever the phrase is, it's gone so far so good or whatever, and how that suddenly then rounds up to this is actually the entire story, and the ticking that's been going on in the whole background is leading up to that moment. And it's actually how you land, and it's that moment of that's them landing, that's going to decide a lot of things. And just going into Saeed, I thought it was just such a good ending, really, really good.
I held on to that right from the because I think is it also the first line in the film, James? Or like
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they said that aloud, I think I was just holding on to that that little ditty right from the get-go, and I think I just had it in mind. I was anticipating just that playing out narratively, like in the broader context of the film. So I was expecting a violent ending. I just didn't know the particulars, the specifics of who would be getting it and, you know, how. But like when it happened, I think I knew that when it was all kind of calming down, just in the way that it was being directed, that there was some kind of there was some play, you know, on the director's part, like trying to mislead and have you think that it's all settling down and that it's going to end peaceably. I had it in my mind just from the way that it was being shot that in about 5-10 seconds from now we're gonna land in something.
It led me down the garden path
at the ending, but it was still pretty moving and very poetic. I do like those films where the ending seems to fit. You know, when you look at the film retroactively, it seems as if you know, the ending of the film, or you know, the ends of those characters were inevitable.
It's another end credit sequence with no music over the top of it either. It's another one of those ones like, bam, take that. See you later.
Yeah.
And
it's really quick as
and you're
well.
like,
there's only a couple of minutes of credit, so presumably they turn all the lights on as well, and everyone will be like,
yeah, literally, it's just one of those ones like in Avengers Infinity War, and you're just sat there like, is that it? Anything else? No. It's just like I love those like hard hitting endings like that. That just slap you in the face.
As well, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Just a quick thought, Jem. You said you liked it was shot in black and white. Anyone got any ideas to why, and whether they liked it or not?
I'll go first, and if anyone hasn't, I think I just like the style of it. It was just made it interesting. I think the scenes where it was shot, obviously there was a lot of graffiti, there was a lot of grime. I'm assuming that 90% of the actual screen was just concrete, so it may as well have been black and white because there was probably a lot of concrete around them, which wouldn't have been particularly interesting. It would have been very difficult, but I think it being black and white was great. It gave it this sort of gritty type feel, even though it wasn't, as you say, Tom, an overly gritty film. It wasn't. When it first started, I thought, "God, there's going to be some really." I didn't look at the rating. I assumed it was an 18. I thought it'd be really quite gritty and violent. It wasn't too bad. But the black and white just sort of brought home the desperation and the I know just undertones of the difficult times that people in those sorts of situations are going through. And the one thing it's left with me is that it's memorable. If I think of that film, I think of the scenes in black and white, whereas other films you think of perhaps you don't perhaps pick up on as much of the stylized nature of it.
Yeah. Anyone else got any thoughts on black and white? Or
I think it's a good question, and it's not one I don't have an answer to. You know, like what does it being in black and white offer the film, you know, narratively or tonally or whatever? And I can definitely say that it does, but I can't say why. I have to think about it.
I don't know whether it was the intention or anything for why they shoot it in black and white, but subconsciously with it being in black and white, analysing the trio the whole time, I was kind of thinking in my head, Vince is black and Hubert is white, and Saeed's kind of all the shades of grey in between. When it comes to a lot of the different scenarios that play out, that's kind of how they sat in relation to one another. I think that's probably me reading into it way too much, and I also don't think it actually runs true for every single part of the film. But generally, it was something that was in my mind as I was watching it, and that could have played an influence. The fact that it was in black and white stuff, that it got me thinking like that.
I read that there was the film is dedicated to those that died in the rioting at the time, and a lot of the footage that's actually used of the riots and stuff is actually real footage of rioting. The director Kassovitz, him and the crew were in the area that the riots were going on for about like 2 or 3 months before even production began, just shooting riots and stuff to sort of flesh it out with real footage. So maybe it could have been a black and white effect could have been some kind of effigy to the events themselves or something like that. But it's hard to pinpoint.
It might just have been that it's the only camera that they can afford. Very often, like an audience just goes fucking like west with all these crazy theories about whether this thing was intended in this particular way. Sometimes it's something very pragmatic or very like logistic or whatever.
Talking about cinematography, do you think having it in black and white gives you more creativity or does it force you into using more interesting camera angles because you can't amaze someone with colours or a sort of beautiful scene in the same traditional way that you can do without black and white? You see what I mean?
Possibly.
You could do.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case because I remember.
I don't know either. It's just
I remember hearing about, and I don't know if they did anything like this within this film, but in Schindler's List, like Liam Neeson would be wearing like bright green jackets because they still pick up tone like within the way it's shot, like from the colours. It's just different depths of black and white in the shot, so you still have to take that into account. So I remember just seeing like a shot and he's wearing like a bright green jacket. Obviously you don't see that in the film, but it was just to get a specific type of shade that he wanted through the camera. So you can still get, I guess, a level of detail from it in that way.
Yeah, it could honestly, like, it could just be down to it looks a bit cooler in this circumstance.
I think it fucking worked. Like
it does. It looks a bit cooler. Tom, was there anything else that you specifically really liked about Lion before we go on to any negatives?
Going on a negative, it didn't. I thought it could have. A film that looked that cool should have had a really good soundtrack. I get that the whole ticking thing was kind of building up to the crescendo, but it could have had a pretty good soundtrack to it. I feel that would have added something to the movie for me.
I thought you'd rate the sound. The first track that played, I actually thought of you, Tom. I was like, oh, Tom will love this shit.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
The first track that was playing, literally as the film was being introduced, the thought popped into my head, oh, Tom was going to rate this stuff.
I can't even remember.
It's funny that it wasn't even memorable enough. Yeah.
I like the scene with the DJ when
that was sick.
And that makes you look at people on the sort of radio with a couple of play and pause buttons on two different sides. You think that's not proper. Like actually spinning the disc like that is how they used it, and it's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
There's a tune in the car as well when they were they drove over into the city. There's a tune that was playing in the car and it was an absolute banger. I remember shazamming it, being like this. I thought the soundtrack was pretty sick.
Well, I love the scene with the drunk guy when they're trying to hotwire the car, and there's the drunk guy just like knocking on the window. The one thing I will say, one final positive, is that the three of them had really great chemistry on screen together. But what a fucking showcase for Vincent Cassel. I thought I'd never really seen him in that many things before that really showed him off as main actor. I thought he was so good. I thought he was so good in it. I mean, they're all fairly young in this as well. But what an iconic role as well, because there's so many of the scenes they're him that people remember from it. Just moving on to any negatives then, is there anything that particularly jumped out? One thing that jumped out to me was just it would have been maybe nice. I know maybe you see more of it today than 25 years ago, but just one or two female characters of some kind might have been nice. But I know the world is different that they're in at that moment. There might not have been that kind of presence, but it might have been nice.